Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. This is another edition of What's Law Got to Do with It. Including in the legal aspect of things is our housing industry. So much going on there. Prices are the highest they've ever been in many, many areas, as is the rent. And we're going to dig into the rent aspect today and how there is potentially a situation with rent price fixing connected to AI. I'm not surprised, but I never processed that until she came along, and she's a partner at Greenspoon, Marder, LLP in New York City, our professional of the year. Carol Sigmond back on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Steve. How are you?
I'm ready to pay my rent, which is astronomically high, which I can't really do much about because it's the same everywhere I am, give or take a few $100s if you want to compare the same type of place where I am. And I'm in between houses because that doesn't look like a good idea at this moment. What is going on with AI and price fixing on rent?
Well, it goes back to the end of the Biden administration. In the final 6 months of the Biden administration, ProPublica published a report about RealPage Inc., which is a publication, I believe it's based in Texas. And what they had was an algorithm that assembled rent information from their various subscribers and allowed these subscribers to see the rent status in real time across the industry. In other words, not just their own rents, but everyone else's. And it essentially allowed for price fixing by the algorithm. So the algorithm is looking at the rents charged by A and B and C and D and assembling them and finding a higher price for all of them.
How is that data accurate? Because you would have to go to every area, call it every complex maybe, get very granular and specific to know what the rent is on, let's say, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in an area. How are we, if this is being done with the algorithms, garbage in equals garbage out, you got to make sure that the information is accurate.
They were getting the information from their subscribers. In other words, Real Deal is offering your subscribers a service of information on rentals in their areas, in return for which the subscribers were feeding their data into Real Deal, and Real Deal was applying it to their algorithm. And they could manipulate that algorithm by geographic area, by county, by complex. They had many ways to manipulate that algorithm. I'm not sure we know all of them.
Wow. So it stands to reason, hey, if the rent is $3,200 in this one area for, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, whatever it is, you're going to raise your prices higher or keep them at that amount. Wow.
So that's what was happening. So the Justice Department, under then Attorney General Merrick Garland, sued. There are a number of states, most of them in the West, that joined the federal lawsuit. There is now a lawsuit in New Jersey that was recently filed. I haven't seen one in New York yet, but the governors of California and New York have both signed legislation expressly outlawing the use of AI algorithms to fix rents.
How can that be policed?
Don't ask questions like that.
I'm just saying, like how
it's going to be difficult.
Yeah. Wow.
There is a lawsuit that the Attorney General for the city of the District of Columbia also has a suit pending. There are a number of these suits pending. My suspicion is that the only way it's going to wind up being policed is that the courts will dig through this data, hold a trial, and ultimately issue a decree. And the decree will granularly prohibit certain types of collection of data, manipulation of data, and probably publication of data that allows for the antitrust violation. And if I would think California and New York would then try to pick up on it. I haven't studied the legislation in New York, but my guess is that what's going to happen is there would have to be an investigation and then some kind of civil suit or criminal charges based on what the governor's the legislation is. But this is going to be slow. It's going to be difficult, and it's going to require a lot of detail and digging. But there is movement, and there are states that are pushing ahead with this.
How can it be determined that there's a violation, that the law was broken? Where does that start?
I think it starts with a complaint from someone who says, I think my rent's been fixed.
Well, listen, I need to pause here. I need to make a phone call. It's the truth. It is the truth. And even more so, where I live, a company that owns that complex owns a lot of them. They swallowed them all up. So now they can set the price. They're kind of like the leader in that because they have so many properties. And now everybody, the smaller ones are following suit. Then somebody's renting a place in their home. They look at that and say, oh, we'll go a couple $100 less.
I think that group probably is not accessing this data. They may be accessing data other ways, but they're not accessing the real page data. So the first thing that would be determined is the landlord a consumer of real page data? And then what data are they consuming, and how is RealPage assembling that data? And then is that data beginning to look and meet the tests for price fixing?
Wow.
But this is a very data-driven process. It takes time, and it requires investigations. My own opinion is probably grand jury investigations, but I'm just a poor dumb lawyer here.
No. With this runs deeper than I thought, because I see it challenging to challenge them. You have a lot here at stake. You close the door, let's run a report using AI. It's almost, in my mind, hard to prove.
I think I will say this: the antitrust professionals at the Justice Department, the U.S. Justice Department, and in the various state attorney general offices are sophisticated antitrust litigators.
Okay.
Now, antitrust litigation is somewhat unique because it is very economically driven, and they work with economists as experts, and then they have very their own sophisticated AI tools to manage this data. These are serious professionals. They're trying to do a good job. And I know we have our doubts sometimes about the bureaucracy and whether it's working for the public or not. But it appears to me, from what I can follow in this litigation on RealPage, the career prosecutors in these various antitrust divisions are taking it very seriously and working very hard at it.
Do you think that there will be, in some form of time, rents coming down?
Everything it tends to be very sticky. Price increases of all types are sticky. There have been some settlements already. There are some companies that have had to refund money to customers or pay damages to the government. So there is some relief coming. It's coming here and there, fits and starts, different places as the cases are maturing. Will it bring rents down? I'm not sure. Will it? I think the goal right now is to stop the increases and prevent any gouging.
Let's pivot over to housing. and prices in that situation. And by the way, I just want to share, housing litigation is one of your niches legally. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? They've been up there. The prices, in most areas in the country, not coming down as we can see. Interest rates, all of that. What's your read on that?
Well, I have a number of reads, and there are a number of pressures on the industry. We've talked about them before, but let's just review them. One is 1 out of every 4 or 5, depending on whose statistics you use, workers in the construction labor force are undocumented. So you have the pressure on the undocumented that is reducing the labor force. You have the tariffs, which have been particularly hard on Mexico and Canada, which have been raising the price of a lot of construction materials. The president's hoping that this onshores. I don't know how much of this can onshore, but we have the situation with the tariffs. Goldman released a report recently that 55% of the tariff was now being borne by the consumer, 22% by the business, and the remaining 23% was some by the exporters, and some by some of the money. They weren't clear who was carrying it, but we know that business is taking about 22% and the consumer is taking about 55%.
55. Wow.
It amounts to a $3 trillion tax increase that was not voted on by Congress. So that material pressure is on. And remember, it's on a lot of things. It's not only on lumber and cement and different things like that. It's also on washing machines, trucks, automobiles. It's a lot. It's a lot that's being affected. And while some economists are saying, oh, it's a one-time thing, you only buy a vacuum cleaner every so often, it's not just a one-time thing. It's on clothes. That's not a one-time thing. Think of a family that's trying to, buy clothes for kids for school.
Sure.
So it's not a one-time thing. I don't entirely agree with the economists on that, although I understand the point.
But it's all trickled down because you pay more for that vacuum cleaner. It's taking more of your income. It's got to go somewhere, whether it's a one-time purchase or not. You still paid more.
Yeah, the argument is that the consumer is benefiting to some degree or another from the one big beautiful bill with the increased deductions on their taxes. I'm not sure that that's a real good a completely fair offset. And I don't, and I think the numbers suggest that since inflation is staying with us, it probably is not.
Well, you used the word sticky before. That's sticky right there. To know that, all right, I spend more for a vacuum, more for a car, whatever it might be, but I'm gonna save it on the back end with my taxes. Really, I want to see dollar for dollar discount.
Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath, please.
Perfect world. I try to live in.
So we have the tariffs. We have the labor force issues, and we have the DOGE impacts on the housing programs from government. Government used to provide more support for housing construction. That's mostly gone, not entirely gone, but mostly gone. And then you have the inflationary forces, which is keeping interest rates up. And now you have this, now we have to acknowledge that rents have been kept artificially high. So here you have young people who are trying to save to buy a house. You have all of these forces that are affecting pricing. There aren't a lot of forces trying to help. Now you have some conversions of commercial buildings, disused commercial buildings being converted to housing. More a city phenomenon than anywhere else, but is happening in cities. That's doing some good. There
Well,
are
okay. Can I
projects
just on that point right there? And I see it. You're in New York City. I'm on Long Island. We just happen to be not far away from each other. I'm seeing that happen a lot here, where an entire shopping center where I grew up is now gone. They're leveling it. The post office got moved to another shopping center. There's like maybe 2 things left in there, and I guess they're writing out the end of the lease, and they're going to just blow it all up and make apartments. Okay, great. We have more. We need that. However, the prices of these apartments, not in a very fantastically desirable area, is astronomical. I am talking, $4,500, $5,000. How are people even paying for that, especially younger people?
It's the problem. That's the difficulty we have. Housing and healthcare are 2 areas where government policy can affect pricing. And they can affect pricing to help the consumer or affect pricing to not help the consumer. In the post-World War II era, the immediate post-World War II era, we had lots of policies in place to help consumers with housing. We have now the shutdown over the Obamacare subsidies. That's something to help consumers with the healthcare costs. But right now, there's not a lot of help for consumers on the housing side, except coming again from some of the states where they're trying to take steps to increase housing. I mean, New York is trying to make it easier to convert office buildings to residences. I think the easiest thing to convert are disused hotels. And so some of the excess hotel capacity in New York may be converted to housing. It looks to me like a good idea. And unlike retail buildings, which may not have the windows for the bedrooms and the
plumbing and everything else,
the hotels have a lot of bathrooms, some of which can be converted to use for kitchens. And they have windows in the bedrooms, so they have some of the features that are required for housing. So, there are some efforts being made.
Is there anything, now this is my pie in the sky question, is there anything that can be done? Let's say you have a developer, real estate company, they build stuff. They're going to take, be it a hotel, motel, or they're going to take a shopping center and build apartments. Great, we need them. Is there anything that can subsidize that to keep the rent lower than the numbers that we're talking about?
The city and some of the, I'm not as familiar with the suburban programs, but the city certainly tries to use real estate tax incentives to do that.
Yeah.
And that's a good idea. And that's one of the programs that the city has to try and help with this problem. But the city is just a city, and it can't affect the tariffs, and it can't affect the labor supply. And it can do its best from an enforcement point of view to support the prosecutors in dealing with the antitrust violations, but they can't stop them themselves. They can do what they can do. I mean, Mayor Adams has done some things to try to help the housing side of things. It's an issue between the major candidates for mayor whose thinking and approach will do more to help housing. Mandami's idea is, well, we're just going to freeze rents. I'm not sure that's going to be that effective. It sounds good, but 2 things. He can't really do it. He needs legislation, and he's got the rent control board he has to deal with. But a bigger question is, were they to go in with some kind of rent freeze, I think the landlords would respond by going to court, and we might have a case over takings. And I do not think the current Supreme Court is going to be very friendly to New York's rent control laws. So Mandami's strategy may be very risky.
Disclaimer, I didn't say this, but I feel we need to. We're not talking politics here.
No, this is not about politics.
Yeah, we're stating facts. Even what you talked about before with the housing industry and undocumented workers there, 1 in 4, et cetera, et cetera. Those are just numbers. We're repeating the numbers.
We're just dealing with facts.
Exactly.
I was going to say the counter position would be to maintain the current rent laws and try to increase supply. So, there are different political solutions from different directions. We'll see what the people of the city of New York think is the best thing for the city. And that will be soon. But I am concerned that there is maybe not enough thought going into the legal ramifications of some of these plans and what might happen. And I just think it's something people should be thinking about, like everything else we should be thinking about.
Well, certainly, those who are renting, back to the beginning of today, just being even aware of price fixing. Yeah, we think it, but, is it really going on? What's your feeling overall with that? Do you think this is what's actually taking place?
Yeah, I do generally. I want to comment that I think it's a little harder in New York. In New York City for a couple of reasons. One is the rent stabilization program does act as a brake. Two, there are so many landlords who are not subscribers to RealPage. It hasn't got as high a penetration in this market as it has in some other markets. And where it has higher penetration, it has more impact. On Long Island, where you have these complexes, big complexes, and not so many different small landlords, you may have actually be more vulnerable to this than we are in the city because we have so many landlords. We have the rent guidelines. We have the rent stabilization program. We have some housing coming online that's going to be subject to new kinds of rent programs. So I feel like the city, Quad City, may not have as much of an issue in this area as possibly a suburb with a lot of garden type apartments in big complexes. It might actually be easier in those areas to do that type of thing. But I think it may be a problem in New York. Certainly the governor is making sure she doesn't want it to become a problem in New York, but I think it's harder really in New York than some other states because there are just so many different landlords. And I haven't seen evidence that RealPage has a major penetration in New York.
Wow. We talked about a lot today, but all very impactful or all important. And everything that was discussed on this podcast today affects all of us. You may own your house. You may have owned it, for 20 years. You're buying a vacuum soon or something like that, and you're paying a tariff. It's all there. What's the best way if somebody wants to reach out to you, Carol? They got a question, want to pick your brain. What's the best way to do that?
Email me, carol.sigmond, SIGMOND @gmlaw.com.
Gotcha. And certainly instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com if you'd like to reach out. And we'd love to hear from you. And by the way, keep it anonymous if you so choose. That's all good. Thank you for today. Thank you for always having your finger on the pulse of what's going on here. I know that housing is in your major wheelhouse, but you're watching everything, and I truly appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. It was nice seeing you again.
Likewise. All right, we'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.